You are listening to the Everything Ham Radio podcast. This is episode number 32. Today we're going to be talking about some stuff that's been going on here in the U.S., and we're also going to be talking about what exactly the Amateur Radio Emergency Services, or ARES, is, since it's a big part of what we're going to be talking about today. A little later, we're going to be talking about the Hellgate Amateur Radio Club in our Amateur Radio Club Spotlight, so stay tuned. Hey everybody, and welcome to the Everything Ham Radio podcast. This podcast is released every Tuesday morning. You can find all the links that we're going to be talking about, as well as some additional information of this episode, or about this episode, in the show notes for today that you can find at everythinghamradio.com/podcast/32. That's the number 32. You can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/everythinghamradio, on Twitter at K5CLM, or on my new YouTube channel at youtube.com/everythinghamradio. So, what do you say we get started on the topic of today? Now, actually, before we get started, I'm going to explain what happened, okay? The last episode I told y'all that we were going to be talking with my wife, and we were going to get her views of being the wife of an amateur radio operator when she wasn't an amateur radio operator, and she still isn't. And after training that we had to go to, and kid stuff that we had to do, and all that, it came down to last night that we had to get the interview recorded, and I was basically told that I had too much on my plate, and that ensued a lengthy discussion. So, needless to say, didn't get the recording done. So, I had to go to Plan B, and I'm having to make some changes in the way that I do some stuff, meaning that when I'm at home, and I have to do this elsewhere, or in my free time when there's nothing else going on. So that might be some changes to the podcast coming down the pipe. I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to do, if I'm going to continue with the weekly podcast, which I really would like to do, but it's definitely probably not going to be as many interview-style episodes as there has been, which is unfortunate because I've really enjoyed those. There still might be. It all depends on the person if they can record on like a Saturday morning or something. So, but anyways, the topic of today. Last week, the first part of last week, I think maybe last Sunday, something like that, I was watching the news, and I saw a news helicopter feed of the stretch of road that had a whole bunch of people on it, and actually it wasn't the news, it was on Facebook, but anyways, it had this stretch of road with cars on it, water all the way around it, and the headline read that the National Guard was airdropping supplies in for stranded motorists, because of some reason. I didn't know what it was. Unfortunately, I got like a 911 call or something like that and never got back to actually reading the article. So I didn't really understand what was going on. And that being Sunday, that was my last day at work. And I normally don't get to watch the news when I'm at home because I have, 5 kids. Well, 2 kids right now because 3 of them went home last week. So I don't get to watch the news, so I don't really know all about all this flooding that happened down in Louisiana. Now, call me, out of touch, I guess, maybe, but as I was looking for something to talk about in this episode, I came across this, and I've seen, stuff from the ARRL bulletins and stuff asking for volunteers. Well, I never really looked a whole lot into it, and shame on me for doing that, but as I was looking for topics of this, I'm like, okay, well, let's talk about that. I would really, and I've actually put it in a request with the section manager for Louisiana for an interview. So hopefully in the coming weeks I'll be able to do that, possibly. But anyways, this flood was just horrendous. And it was said by, I'm quoting here, Brad Kaiserman, the Vice President of Disaster Services Operations and Logistics for the American Red Cross. He said, quote, "This is the worst storm to hit the United States since Superstorm Sandy, and we anticipate it will cost more than $30 million, which I'm kind of wondering about that $30 million. But anyways, it continues to say, and a number which may grow as we learn more about the scope and magnitude of this devastation." $30 million really doesn't seem like a lot when I see some of the aerial pictures and stuff, but maybe it is. It said that according to estimates, more than 40,000 homes were damaged or destroyed, leaving tens of thousands of residents displaced. The flooding also killed 13 people, so very sad, all this damage and devastation, and these 13 people that lost their lives. As of August 20th, FEMA reported that there was still 3,100 evacuees that remained in Red Cross shelters. That number down from about 10,000 or so, from what I understand, back on, I believe, like the 16th or 17th. The Louisiana Emergency Operations Center is in full activation mode. There's more than 2,800 National Guard personnel that have conducted flood relief operations around the clock. And on top of all this, amateur radio was there. There was a call for help by the Louisiana section to assist with all this. And the people that lived there, the hams that lived there, really couldn't help the way that needed to be, because they were too busy taking care of their own homes, taking care of their property and their damage, so they really weren't able to help in the way that we as amateur radio operators, are, I guess, maybe expected, at least expect themselves anyways. The Louisiana got a call for assistance. People from Alabama, from Arkansas, from Mississippi, all came to help in different locations. And that, to me, just is awesome. So, all these volunteers, they came, they helped. They manned American Red Cross shelters. They manned fire stations and stuff like that. A couple episodes you may remember when I did my little something, or my little looking back on the last 2+ years episode, I talked about my ham club that I'm involved with, that I helped start. And I told you a little bit about what we do. Well, we are there. We're there. We have 2 shelters set up, clothing distribution shelters, and I don't have any figures right now on how many people have come through there, but I can just imagine that the number is huge. Being that there was upwards of like 10,000 people in the shelters at the time, or at the height of this. So, we weren't able to get down there with our trucks that serve 2,000 people each, because I-10 was shut down, Highway 56 was shut down, so we had no way of getting into the Baton Rouge area. But we are down there as far as the clothing distribution centers. Like I said, we have 2 of those. And, that's what we do as a club. That's what we do in our disaster response. And Louisiana is part of our response area. So as of August the 20th at 21:16 UTC time, the the Amateur Radio Emergency Services Operation in Louisiana, Assistant Section Manager Matt Anderson, KD5KNZ, said that the Louisiana Aries is in the process of deactivating from the recent flood response, and the need for volunteers is no more. It has ended. All Aries personnel should be released by that evening, so as of yesterday, all personnel should be released who have been serving as the incident point of contact in Baton Rouge. Like I said, there was amateur volunteers from Alabama, Arkansas, Mississippi were all there. The South Texas section was activated and put on standby. But I'm sure that some of y'all have seen pictures of the devastation that's going on down there. And I'm actually going to have a couple pictures that I found off of CNN story in the show notes, a before and after picture of a road that one day had very little water on it, and the next day had like 2 feet of water all the way across it, and it was totally flooded out. So check out the show notes for those pictures. It's very interesting. And one of the things that really shocked me, I guess, was that Livingston Parish received more than 31 inches of rain in 15 hours, and the whole area received 6.9 trillion gallons of rain in 1 week. Alright, so we're going to switch gears here just a tad bit. We're going to go from Aries to Races, and also along with a little bit of CERT. For those of you that don't know what CERT is the Community Emergency Response Team, and that's gotten really big here, especially here in the last few years. But in this story, we're going to be talking about California and how the California Races and CERT volunteers team up to assist seniors during a blackout. Back on June 4th, which happened to be my birthday this year, the Huntington Gardens and 5 Point senior residences in Huntington Beach, California, their power went out. And altogether, this was like 14 structures. Now, when the power went out, the generator at one of the facilities at the Huntington Gardens, they had a generator, but it only supplied power for the hallways and the elevators. It didn't give the individual living units, it didn't the telephones, nothing like that. So the people that lived there had no way of calling 911 if something were, to happen. And the other facility at 5 Points, they were just really SOL because they didn't have a generator at all. So they were in like pitch black darkness. And so what happened is the Races radio officer, Dr. Steve Graboff, I believe is how you pronounce it, Whiskey 6 George Oscar Sierra, and his assistant, Steve Albert, KE60CE, they started the 2-meter net and logged in available communicators. The operators checked into the net and were advised to proceed to the staging area at the Hamilton Beach City Hall. Once they got there, basically the ham radio operators were teamed up with CERT volunteers, and each pair manned a floor of the buildings. And they stayed there all night, made sure that they had communications for anybody. They roamed the halls to make sure that nobody was asking for help. And altogether, they had like 60 volunteers, and it was really awesome. The local radio officer there said that the Races CERT grouping worked really well together, and they'll probably do that in the future. So, okay, let's take a quick break from this section and talk about what Amateur Radio Emergency Services is, or ARES. Now, I had a blog on this sometime last month, I think, or last year, rather, about what Races is, what ARES is, stuff like that. The ARES is an organization that was started by the ARRL, and it consists of licensed amateurs who have voluntarily registered their qualifications and equipment for communications duty when a disaster strikes. ARES membership is open to any licensed amateur radio operator that is willing to volunteer. Now, there are 4 levels of the ARES organization. There is a national section, district, and local. The national level is handled by the ARRL membership and volunteer program manager, and he does all the top level stuff. Okay, each area, I guess, is broken down into a section, and the section can consist of several counties, a major metropolitan area, stuff like that. Here, where I live at, is the North Texas section. And Texas, I believe, is broken up into, I want to say 4 different sections, I think is what it is. But I'm in the North Texas section. So the section will, in turn, appoint a section emergency coordinator who is responsible for all ARES activities in their section. The section emergency coordinator also appoints a district and local emergency coordinators. At the district level, the district emergency coordinator can be appointed to handle a large area, such as several counties or a portion of the section that the section manager covers. The local level is probably the most organized of the area's levels, being that it has the most interaction with actual Aries membership. It also interacts with local emergency management personnel. A lot of times the local level will work at an emergency operations center, or work with a sheriff's office or police department or what have you. That the local level usually takes the form of like nets, either on HF, VHF, UHF, repeater nets, RTTY, packet, or other special modes that can be used for nets. And basically, you do your nets for your communication, you do your training, you do your drills, all that at the local level, and it all gets passed uphill to the section, to the national. The other thing that the local area does is like pre-disaster planning. It's very important for your local areas group to find out who is going to need help during a disaster, what kind of help they're going to need, what you can do, stuff like that. And after you get all that, plan it out, have your drills and stuff to make sure that everything happens right. That way, when or if a disaster hits, you don't have to worry about, or don't have to worry as much anyways, about something going wrong or not having something that you need, or somebody needing something that you can't do, or doing something that people don't need. So anyways, that's what Aries is. On the flip side of that, Races is more along the lines of a during the incident thing, like a major disaster or a tornado. Skywarn is typically used under the umbrella of Races, even though it's not really related, so to speak. But natural disasters, stuff like that, it's used during. I'm sorry, I cannot talk right now. It is typically done during the under the Races umbrella. Alright, so we're going to switch gears a little bit, and we're going to talk about the national parks on the air. Now, I talked about the national parks on the air in a full episode back in episode number 16, which you can go back and listen to very easily. Just go to everythinghamradio.com/podcast/16, and you can hear all about the national parks on the air. And the national parks on the air, it's a commemorative thing for the 100th anniversary of the National Park Service. Well, coming up very soon, like as in 2 days after this releases, on the 25th, is what's known as Founders Day. And that's when basically the National Park Service actually officially started. And there are several activations that week, or the week of August 18th through the 24th. There's actually 39 of them. And they're going to have, activations all over the place. I mean, you can tell 39, that's a lot, right? Now, you can actually go on to the website and look at all the events that are happening, all 39 of them, plus I'm sure a little bit more between now and then. The link will be on the show notes, but if you don't look at the show notes for whatever reason, if you go to npota.awrl.org, you can find that events calendar. Alright, and last but definitely not least, on the topics that we're going to be talking about today, FEMA is teaming up with amateur radio clubs to present preparedness information. September, this month is coming up here in like 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks, is National Preparedness Month. As part of its focus on educating and getting prepared, FEMA is offering a family emergency communications plan, which helps family work out their communication strategy in the event of an emergency. ARRL is partnering with FEMA to offer this material to interested amateur radio clubs that are willing to present it to their local localities during a National Preparedness Month. While FEMA presentations focus on family communications plan. It doesn't specifically mention ham radio, however. The material offers amateur radio clubs a great opportunity to raise their visibility in their communities. So even though the FEMA information pamphlet or whatever doesn't actually specify amateur radio, it gives us as amateur radio operators a way to break the ice and say, hey, this is what amateur radio is about. So this is a good thing. Now, something else that's going to be the day after this podcast comes out, it's going to be on actually the day that this thing comes out. It's going to be on Tuesday, August the 23rd at 8 p.m. So hopefully you hear this enough, because this is going to go live at 4 a.m. So hopefully you'll listen to it right away. There's going to be a webinar on preparedness, basically. And it's going to be done by the preparedness liaison, Sarah Varela, I believe. And basically it's to offer background and training for any club to present FEMA's Family Emergency Communications Plan material in September. There is a link that you can go to on the show notes to register for it. So when you listen to this, definitely go to my show notes, click on that link to watch this webinar. Hopefully I'm going to get this little blurb out beforehand. So, but anyways, this thing would be really neat. The webinar is going to be approximately about an hour or so, and it's going to include a PowerPoint presentation and links to worksheets that families can discuss and fill out together. Clubs are free to offer additional presentations on their activities following this program covering the FEMA material. So this is a good way, I think, another great avenue to spread the word about emergency preparedness, which I am a very, very much activist for. You know, an emergency can come at a moment's notice, and if you're not prepared, then, you know, you're going to be up a creek without a paddle, so to speak. So yeah, definitely check it out. Get together with your club, figure out what y'all are going to do, if you can do anything. In September, like I said, this is National Preparedness Month. We're actually having this will be I want to say third year, fourth year, something like that, that my county has put on a preparedness fair. And we have our Emergency Operations Center. We'll go out there with our radio trailer. My church's disaster response will take their semi out there, and we'll give tours through it. I've done that a couple times. Fire departments come out. Safe room manufacturers come out. There's things like my local news station comes out, Channel 11. They send out their storm truck and one of their meteorologists, and they give, I think last year they gave like weather radios away. There's a bunch of people there. I think last year we had something like 50 some odd people, 50 some odd booths and stuff set up. So a lot of information, a lot of fun stuff, and a great way to spread the word about different things, about how to be prepared in case of emergency. So this all started here locally after a tornado came through the county seat and did, I want to say, like $75 million worth of damage or something like that. So it was a fairly significant, I think it was like a ETH032 that came through our city. So yeah, if your club doesn't do anything like this, talk to them about it, especially this coming up September. Talk to them, figure out some way to spread the word about the hobby, about being prepared, about all this stuff. So head on over to the show notes to get the link to the webinar, everythinghamradio.com/podcast/32. It's going to be about halfway down the page or so. Okay, so I guess that pretty much wraps up what I wanted to talk about today. It's a little shorter than it has been here recently, but it's going to be right about that 30-minute mark, I believe, for this episode. So we'll see what happens. Please, guys and gals, leave your comments below in the show notes. And let me know what you're thinking about the way that's been going on. Like I said, I hope to get to continue to do at least every other episode as an interview type. Maybe do interview and then solo, and then interview and solo, back and forth. Um, I might end up having to just go down to like every other week on my podcast. I really hope I don't have to, but depending on how this whole new business thing that I'm trying to start goes, I might have to do that. So we'll see. I will let y'all know. And like I said, I hope I don't have to. I hope I can continue doing it the weekly. I really love doing this. I love spreading information about amateur radio. And this last month and a half, 2 months or so, it's just been, y'all have been awesome, of spreading the word, of listening to the podcasts, of going to my website and checking it out. My overall downloads have gone up probably double in the past 2 months. So it's been astonishing, and it really stinks that I'm having to possibly cut back right about the time that my podcast and my blog are going to explode. Um, I've had 3 episodes so far this month, and I've already topped the downloads of last month. I've already had over, I think, 4,100 downloads. So all y'all that are listening, thank you very much. Please continue to listen. Please bear with me as I'm going through this struggle and this change and stuff. I hope I can continue to put out good quality material for y'all and stuff that y'all will like. If you do feel so inclined that you want to help support this podcast and my blog, there are several ways that you can do it. You can go and make a single donation through PayPal. There's actually a link at the bottom of the show notes that you can do that as well. You can become a monthly contributor through Patreon. You can do $1 a month. You can do $5 a month, $10 a month, up to $25 a month. I have it set for monthly right now. I'm wondering if I ought to go per episode. That's normally the way the podcasts do it. But so either way, whichever way y'all want to do, whichever way y'all feel, if you want to do it that way. The other way is probably the easiest way and the least intrusive for you, my listeners, and that's to go through my affiliate link for Amazon.com. It's super easy. You won't notice anything on your end. Basically, I will just get a advertising fee on stuff that you buy. So you won't see anything. It won't be any higher. Nothing like that. I just get like a kickback for referring you there. So if you go over to everythinghamradio.com/support, there will be links to PayPal, to Patreon, and also a link to Amazon.com with my affiliate link. All you got to do, click on that link, go to it, and reset your bookmark. I believe is all you really have to do. Or just manually edit your bookmark with a little bit extra at the end of it. Super easy, and I greatly appreciate it if you do. It really helps me out, especially now that my other financial sources might be dry, since I'm doing too much, so to speak, for my wife. But anyways, that about wraps it up, and whether you want to support financially or not, I want to thank you, each and every one of y'all, for listening. This journey that I've been going through over this past 7.5 months, 8.5 months, whatever it is now, has just been really awesome. Alright, so for our Amateur Radio Club Spotlight of today, for this episode, we're going to be talking about the Hellgate Amateur Radio Club. You can find their website at w7px.org. That's Whiskey 7 Papa X-ray.org. This club has a very interesting history, and that's really the reason that I chose this club to do the Amateur Radio Club Spotlight on. The club was started in 1930, and at the time it was named the Missoula Amateur Radio Club, and I'm probably not saying that right. Missoula is a town in Montana. The club started with 19 charter members one of those members, or one of the members today, a Bob Williams, Whiskey 7, India Papa Bravo, has been active in the club since 1957. Now, I don't know about y'all, but that is a long time. I mean, that's like three times as long as I've been alive. I think my mother was actually born in 1953, so if that tells you anything. Um, the club call sign was the call sign of a long, outstanding member of the club. His name was Phil Coulter. After he became a silent key, the club approached his daughter requesting that she allow the club to apply for his call sign to be the club's call sign as a way to honor his memory. She agreed, and the FCC granted the club the license of Whiskey 7 Papa X-Ray in mid 1986. I believe it was like probably somewhere around May of 1986. That's actually when the letter was written. So probably sometime right around there. And it's been the club call sign ever since. One of the things that really, has that awe factor, okay, as I was reading through the history of this club, one of the entries of the history reads like this. In December of 1983, WA1JXN-7, now W7GH, Lance Collister, became the first amateur radio operator in the world to communicate with an astronaut in space. Lance communicated with W5LFL, Dr. Owen Garrett, while the Space Shuttle Columbia orbited the Earth 250 nautical miles above the western Pacific. The antenna, a homebrew moon bounce 2-meter array of 12 Yagis. That's a lot of antennas. That's a long way to talk. And that's pretty cool. Be the first person in the world to talk to the space shuttle on amateur radio. That's pretty cool. They have meetings on the second Monday of every month at the Missoula Firehouse number 4. They also have testing sessions at the club meetings. Testing sessions start at 5:30. The meeting itself starts at 7. They also have a Saturday breakfast, which is like an unofficial meeting type thing. Every Saturday mornings, they meet at Paradise Falls at 7 a.m. So if you're around there, head on over there one Saturday morning, it says, and I quote, find area hams jawing over coffee, eggs, and pancakes and toast at a local restaurant. So you're going to have hams eating hams. They have a bunch of repeaters. I believe they have like 6 or 7 repeaters, so I'm not really going to list them on the show notes, but I did give a link to all the repeaters that they own. They also do several nets, all on one page. There is a link there. It is w7px.org/nets _ repeaters.html. But like I said, there is a link in the show notes. They also have a monthly newsletter, and they do several activities. They do the Grizzly Triathlon, the Riverbank Run, Tour of the Swan River Valley, Field Day, July 4 at the Fort, which is a W7PX special event, Missoula Marathon in July, the Boy Scouts Jamboree on the Air. They do a special event for Skyborne Recognition Day. They do quite a bit, and this is a very active club. They have over 100 members, I believe is what it says. So if you live up in Montana, anywhere near Missoula, or you're going to be up in that area around one of the times their meeting is, head on over there, check them out, tell them I sent you, and I'm sure you'll probably have a good time. It sounds like a really good group of men and women there. Alright, well, that about wraps it up for the Amateur Radio Club Spotlight, and that about wraps it up for this episode. Alright, y'all, I want to thank y'all all for listening to this episode of the Everything Ham Radio podcast. Again, you can find all the links and things that we've talked about, as well as some additional information in the show notes for today at everythinghamradio.com/podcast/32. If you want to receive emails on when I publish a new podcast or a new blog posts, you can subscribe to my email list at everythinghamradio.com/subscribe. Also follow me on Facebook, facebook.com/everythinghamradio, on Twitter at K5CLM, and on my new YouTube channel at youtube.com/everythinghamradio. If you like what you heard here, please share this with your friends, and give me a review on iTunes. And until next time, this is K5CLM signing out. 73, y'all.